What will happen to Christians? This is a question believers wrestle with, especially when life doesn't seem to be going the way we imagined. We face trials, setbacks, and often wonder if things will ever improve. But if you're a Christian, there's an incredible promise from God that applies to your life and your future. A promise that is beautifully captured in Haggai 2 verses 9. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former. So, what will happen to Christians? The future promises a glory that is far greater than anything we can imagine. Even when things feel hard or insignificant, God is working in us and preparing us for what's to come. Don't be discouraged if your current situation seems small or if your efforts don't seem to measure up. God's glory is being revealed in you, and He is preparing you for something far greater. The glory of the latter shall be greater than the former. This verse is a beacon of hope, especially when you feel like you're in a season of rebuilding or facing difficulties. If you've ever looked at your circumstances and thought, "This doesn't compare to what I had before," then this message is for you. Let's break it down. Haggai was a prophet sent by God to speak to the people of Israel after they had returned from exile. The Israelites had been living in Babylon for 70 years, and they were finally allowed to rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. But there was a problem. The new temple they were building didn't even come close to the magnificence of the old temple built by King Solomon. In fact, when the older generation saw the new temple being built, they wept because they remembered the former glory of Solomon's temple. It was massive, adorned with gold and precious stones. But this new temple, though still important, felt small, inadequate, and plain in comparison. That's when God spoke through Haggai and said, "The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former." Now, let's stop right here and think about what that means. On the surface, it seems impossible. How could the new temple, which is obviously smaller, be greater? But here's where we need to understand the true meaning of glory in biblical terms. The glory of God isn't just about physical grandeur or external appearances. It's about the presence of God and the work He's doing. The promise here is that while the new temple may look humbler on the outside, the spiritual significance would be far greater than the first. God was about to move in a new way. He would fill the temple with His presence more than ever before. And that's the key. God's glory is never limited by the outward appearance of things. It's not about the size or beauty of the building. It's about what God is doing within it. So, what does this mean for us today? Maybe you feel like you're in a season of transition. Perhaps you look at your current situation, your current job, your ministry, or even your relationships, and think, "This doesn't compare to what I had before." But God wants to remind you that His plans for your future are greater than your past. When we think of God's glory, we often think of past victories, moments of breakthrough, or even seasons where we felt incredibly close to God. But here's the truth: the best is yet to come. Just as the Israelites were building a temple that would ultimately see God's presence in a way they couldn't yet understand, we too are walking into a future where God's glory will shine even brighter than our past. You see, God doesn't just want us to reminisce about the good old days. He wants us to look ahead with hope and expectancy for what He's about to do. Even when the path looks unclear or the work feels hard, we can trust that God is preparing us for greater things. This verse also shows us that God's timing is different from ours. The Israelites wanted instant results. They wanted a grand temple immediately, but God had a bigger plan. Sometimes, in our lives, God asks us to be patient as He works behind the scenes, refining and preparing us for the future He's promised. And then, there's the promise of peace that follows. "In this place will I give peace." This peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's a deep, abiding peace that comes from knowing that God is with us, that He is working in us, and that His glory is evident in our lives. It's the kind of peace that can only come when we trust that God is in control, even when things seem difficult or uncertain. Let's take this one step further. The fulfillment of this promise, the greater glory of the latter house, is ultimately found in Jesus Christ. The temple that was rebuilt was important. but it pointed forward to something greater. Jesus, who is the ultimate fulfillment of God's glory, came to dwell among us, to walk among us, and to ultimately become the living temple where God's presence would be fully revealed. John 1 verse 14 says, "The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father." Jesus is the glory of God revealed to us. Just like the latter temple would see greater glory, Jesus represents the ultimate glory that transcends anything the physical temple could contain. So, as believers, we can hold on to this promise. Even in seasons of hardship, when you're feeling like you're rebuilding or starting over, remember, the glory of the latter will always be greater than the former. What you're building today, what God is doing in you, will far surpass anything you've experienced before. God doesn't leave us where we are. He's always leading us forward, from glory to glory. Maybe you're going through a time where things feel less glamorous than they used to, where your efforts seem small compared to your past accomplishments. But don't despair. Just like God was with the Israelites in their rebuilding, He's with you. What you're building now has eternal significance, and God's glory will fill it like never before. As you step forward, trust that the latter glory, the greater things God has in store, are coming. Keep your eyes fixed on Him. Keep moving forward, even when the journey feels long. Because the glory of what is to come will far exceed anything you could ever imagine. Remember, God's glory isn't about outward appearance. It's about His presence and His purpose in your life. The best is yet to come, and you are part of His bigger plan. Keep building, keep trusting, and watch as He fills your life with His peace and glory. If this message blessed you, please subscribe and share it with a friend today.